Hello, welcome to the channel. In this video, I'm going to cover the 6 areas that I use to set up my rig to be able to stream or record iRacing with GSync enabled on my triple screens. First area we're going to talk about is the Nvidia Control Panel. Second, we'll talk about the Windows graphics settings. Third, we're going to look at that renderer dx11 monitor.ini file that sets up your screens for iRacing. The fourth setting is the key to this whole thing, so you'll want to stick around for that. The fifth thing we'll look at are my iRacing graphics settings, and then finally we'll look at OBS settings that I use for recording and streaming. I'm also going to quickly cover something I mentioned in the last video about OBS and OBS breaking GSync, but we'll talk about that when we get there. In the meantime, I'll see you on the other side of the intro. I've got my view set correctly. Are you kidding me? All right, so let's talk real quick about my last video where I mentioned OBS breaking GSync. What I ended up finding after some more testing and trial and error is that it wasn't actually GSync itself that was breaking, it wasn't OBS itself that was breaking GSync. It was just the scene that I was using at the time in OBS. Through some testing, I went ahead and created just a brand new scene and just some basic stuff, some video and microphone type stuff, and all of a sudden GSync was working in iRacing again. So what I ended up doing was kind of breaking down that scene one at a time, deleting each of the sources out of it one at a time until GSync started working. Problem is, I took everything out and it still didn't work. So it was something with the scenes themselves. And so what I ended up doing was just discarding that whole one, re-importing my scene from Nerd or Die, the kinetic scene that I use on my streams and recordings, and then just rebuilding it basically from scratch. After doing that, everything continued to work. GSync does not break with OBS. So apologies to OBS for calling them out. I do plan to make another video dealing with Prism, which is the other streaming recording software that I came across that looks exactly like OBS. So I'm probably going to give that a shot at a later date, kind of build that out, talk about the differences between OBS and Prism, and decide which one I like better. But for now, let's talk about GSync and how we get it to work, or at least my settings on how I got it to work on my triple screens with iRacing to keep GSync working the whole time. All right, so the first thing we're going to look at is the Nvidia Control Panel. So if I get to my desktop here, I'm going to right click, have to go to show more options on Windows 11, and we have the Nvidia Control Panel here. All right, as soon as it pops up, there's 3 areas I want to look at. The first area we're going to look at, it's already here, is the Manage 3D Settings. I go over here to Program Settings, and specifically for the iRacing simulator program, and make sure you are selecting the Sim64 DX11.exe, not the GUI. Okay, you want to make sure you've got the Sim64 DX11 one selected. And if I go down through here, I've got everything set to global except for 2 settings. First one, low latency mode. I turn it on. Okay. Of course, GSync is turned on here. It's enabled and being used, which is the global setting for my rig. Scroll down here a little more. The other setting that I have is VSync. I have VSync turned on in the NVIDIA Control Panel. Right. So that's first setting. Next thing I want to show you is, in fact, GSync itself, setting it up. Right. If I go to that section in the display section of NVIDIA Control Panel, you can see I've got it enabled, and I have it enabled for windowed and full screen mode. The windowed part is important because that's how I run iRacing, is in a windowed borderless mode. So we have to have the windowed ones option selected here. Lastly, I'm going to show you for set up multiple displays. If you're running surround, this is where you would set it up. And as you can see, I do not have surround on. These are 3 individual monitors. If surround was enabled, these would all look as one monitor. and that's it. So as far as NVIDIA, the graphics card is concerned, I would only have two monitors, the main big one across the bottom, and then my monitor up at the top. But I am running four monitors. These three are a DisplayPort. This fourth monitor is the HDMI, and it's not GSync compatible. It only runs at 60 hertz. So those are my settings in NVIDIA Control Panel. There's not much to it, but they're what works for me. Okay, so the next settings we're going to cover are Windows settings, right? So let's go into the display settings for Windows. I'm going to right-click on the desktop and select Display Settings. When I do that, it opens up this screen here for display. I'm going to scroll down till we get to Advanced Display. Okay, we're going to go there. One thing you want to make sure is that your monitors are set in this screen for their correct refresh rate. So here you see my monitors are 144, so the only option I have available is this 143.98. So go ahead and select that. You select your different monitors up in this window. So for instance, if I was to select my top monitor, my fourth monitor, it can only do 60 hertz. Well, it can do 71.91, but I'm going to keep it at 60. So you want to go through each one of yours to make sure you have the refresh rate selected correctly here. Okay. Once you check that, let's go back to display here. We're going to scroll down some more, and we're going to look at the graphics section here. Once we're in the graphics, we're going to go to change default graphics settings. And here, for me, I have all three of these turned on. Hardware accelerated GPU scheduling, variable refresh rate, and optimizations for windowed games. Again, windowed is how I run iRacing in this scenario, so this helps to do that. In the past, I've played with all three of these, and none of them kept GSync running or not, so I just leave them all on at the moment, and it works. So that's pretty much it for the Windows settings, right? Next, we're going to look at our renderer DX11 monitor.ini settings in the iRacing folder. All right, so let's look at that .ini file in the iRacing folder. So first we open up File Explorer, Documents, scroll down till we get to iRacing. And once we're in iRacing, for me, I'm going to scroll all the way to the bottom where it says renderer DX11 monitor.ini. Okay, you'll notice I have this one here that's set up for 1440. My other screens are 1440, so I saved that file so that when I go back to them after all this testing is done and all these videos are done, I can just plug that INI file back in and be working on my 1440 monitors, okay? My 1440 monitors don't have the OSD, right? So if we look here, I've got the OSD for the frame rate on both of these, and I've just turned it off on this one so you can see the G-Sync indicator when we're in iRacing, okay? But these are 1080p monitors, so that's why I'm using these, is just because of the OSD for the refresh rate. Eventually, though, I will go back to my 1440s once this is all squared away. So anyway, let's look at our DX11 monitor INI file here. So let's double click it. It opens up in Notepad. We're going to scroll down past all the graphic settings, user options, until we get to the display section here. Okay. So once we're in the display section, you're going to look at these windowed options here. It's like these first 5 or 6. Windowed Y position is 0. That means it's going to put it in the top left corner, top leftmost corner of the screen. I've heard of other people kind of cheating the system and making that a 1 so that it kind of offsets it and actually puts it in a window, and somehow G-Sync works that way. It's kind of a workaround, kind of a hack, if you will, but it works. But this way I'm showing you and all of my settings doesn't require that anymore. So I'm still at Y position of 0. X position, in my case with these screens, it's minus 1920, which means it puts it all the way over on the far left monitor, minus 1920 pixels, which will put that corner of the iRacing window all the way over there. Okay. If you had 1440, that would be, I believe it was 2560. Minus 2560 would put it over. Okay. The windowed width is 3 times 1920. So 5760 is the width of my window with iRacing. Window maximize is 0. My window height, in this case, again, is just 1080. And window alignment is set to 0. The rest of these are all pretty straightforward. You don't have to mess with those. I would just verify, though, that your refresh rate is also set and matches what you have in the window settings we just looked at. Okay, this is automatically measured, I guess you could say, by iRacing when you start the program, and that, because I didn't type that in there, it was in there when I started looking at this and messing with these. But just so you know, it's there. Maybe if your screens at some point in the past defaulted to 60, iRacing didn't update them, that might be one reason why you might be stuck at 60 hertz or something. Okay, so just a couple things to check out. But again, these are just my settings. These are pretty common for a triple screen scenario. So just want to make sure that we're covering all the bases here. Okay, so now we're getting to it. Here it is, the key to all of this. And this is that fourth setting that I've been telling you about. Okay, and it is MPO. All right, so here it is, MPO, right? What the hell is MPO? MPO stands for multi-plane overlay, and it is a technology that Windows introduced, and it was supposed to help gamers deal with lag and screen tearing and things like that. But what I have found through all of my research and reading is that it breaks G-Sync in this situation. So I've got some links that go into a little bit more detail explaining MPO and that kind of thing, plus where to get the fix for it. And I'm going to put those all in the description below. But do me a favor, if y'all would. Since you got to this point, since you hung around for this fourth key ingredient to the whole G-Sync recipe, do me a favor, and if this works for you, if you find that this fixes your G-Sync issues as well, put a comment below letting me know that. That'll help put this video in front of more people and hopefully help others who are experiencing the same problems. Okay. So anyway, if it works for you, please comment below. So let's get into it. So through my research, through all the searching that I did for a fix for this problem, I came across this post in Blurbusters about G-Sync working in windowed mode, about stuttering and flickering, right? So I don't think in this case they were specifically looking for this issue. I think they're trying to solve a stuttering and flickering issue. And a lot of times it seemed to be when they were doing the Alt-Tab thing, okay? So anyway, I scrolled through here and started reading through, checked out some of these links, and I come across this MPO thing, right? Multi-plane overlay. And it's straight from NVIDIA, right? These different articles about NVIDIA. And NVIDIA also offers a registry edit to fix it, right? So if you click on the link, it brings you to NVIDIA support. It started back in driver 461, back in 2021, it looks like. And it talks about how to disable MPO, right? So it's a registry edit. So what you do is you click each one of these, and I recommend you clicking on both, because what it will do is it will download these registry files. So the one here, MPO_disable.reg and MPO_restore.reg. Make sure you download them both. This is the one that will disable it in your registry. If for some reason that messes up your computer, or you're not comfortable with leaving it that way, you can always undo it by running or installing this restore registry entry, right? So I've downloaded these. Let me get to my downloads here. If we bring this down here, you see I've got the disable and the restore. The ones are there because I've done it a couple times, right? So rather than run these, because I've already run it, I'm going to just open this up so you can get a look at what's inside. I'm going to do it with Notepad++. Okay. Let me get these out of the way. Bring down Notepad++. So you have the disable entry. So you can just see it creates a registry entry in this area of the registry, overlay test mode, and the DWORD 5, which I assume is what disables it. If you wanted to undo that and you wanted to run the restore, well, here's the restore. And it just basically puts a dash in there and takes away the 5, which would restore this overlay test mode. Okay. But so what you want to do is run this. Okay. Now, when you do, it's going to put this in your registry. You have to reboot your machine for that change to take effect on your machine. Right. And it's as simple as this. And I've already run it, so I don't think it'll be any harm in running it again. So if I do disable, I double click. It's going to say, are you sure? Right. So I'm going to run it because I know it's cool. I've already done it. I just got the user account control stuff, so no worries there. Now it's giving you another warning about editing your registry, which is valid, right? So you want to make sure this is something you want to do. In my case, I ran it and it was fine. Nothing happened. Okay. So I'm going to click yes. They've been put in, and now let's go take a look at that entry. Okay. So what you'll do is you go down to the search bar. You can't see it because I've got it covered at the moment, but if you type in your search bar, reg edit, you're going to get this registry editor program. Click on it. User account control again. And I happen to have it open because I was already there. DWM. And here is that overlay test mode right here. And all it does is add this in here. The rest of this was already there prior to me doing this, right? And that's all it does. It just puts that entry in there, and it allows this to work. Okay, so that's the key. Okay, that is what unlocked all this. Once I found that option to disable multiplane overlays that had been enabled in Windows years ago, apparently, it consistently allowed me to have GSync working on my windowed borderless mode iRacing triples without surround. So that's the key. So like I said before, if that helps you, if that piece alone helps you and fixes your G-Sync and makes it work for you, please put something in the comments below, letting me know, letting others know that it worked, right? Especially with that doing and editing anything with the registry. Some people are afraid to do that, and rightfully so. You can do a lot of damage in the registry. But if they see others have done it successfully with no ill effects, they're more likely to do it and also benefit from having this fix. So please put something in the comments. And of course, while you're down there, giving the video a thumbs up would be nice. And if you like this and the rest of my content on the channel, please consider subscribing. That would be helpful as well. Okay. So that was it. Those were the 4 things, right? I've got 2 other things I want to show you. I do want to show you my iRacing graphics settings. And then I do want to show you my OBS settings for both recording and streaming, both of which I have done successfully without breaking G-Sync. I've done some streams and I've done a bunch of recordings already with iRacing running races and such. So it works. So I want to show you all those settings. So if you'd like to stick around and you can see those settings. If not, if this was the key, if this was the thing that helped you, I thank you for your time and we'll catch you in the next video. But if you'd like to stick around to see my iRacing graphic settings and OBS settings, then we'll see you on the other side. All right, so here we are in the sim. If I take a quick look at the wheel cam behind me, you'll notice that the refresh rate is varying with the frame rate, okay? You can't really see it over here, but G-Sync indicator is on as well. If I jump in the car, it makes it a little bit easier to see. You can see G-Sync is in there behind that orange circle. And again, my refresh rate is varying with the frame rate, right? So I'll just get out of the car because we don't need to see that it works. I've already done other videos that prove it works. I just needed to kind of verify it still is. And just my main reason for being here is to show you graphics options. So here we go to the graphics tab. And there's nothing special here, right? We got a resolution, which is based on the INI. No full screen, no border. I do have reflex enabled. And I did set up my triple screen monitor's FOV based on one of those online calculators as opposed to the one in iRacing, which I think gives me 181 degree FOV right now. Yeah, 181 is what's in there. The main, other than this, these are all varying, right? None of these really have an effect on G-Sync working. The only thing that probably did is this section here. I choose to have my frame limit to 120. If I set it to no limit, Okay, let me go back to our other camera here. You can see it can go as high as 140 or 144-ish, right? But certainly more than the 120. Yeah, the camera's not focusing in just yet. But it's there. You might be able to see it a little bit up here in the corner, right? If I jump in the car, maybe it makes it a little bit darker and easier to see. I don't know. Anyway, that's there. But I choose to set it to 120 as I said. So let me go to options, back to graphics, turn on 120. The other takeaway from this screen, though, really is that VSync is off here in Sim, and that's because we have it on in the NVIDIA Control Panel. Okay, but other than that, that's pretty much it. There's really not a whole lot else to see here. Just the little, the section down here, and the fact that I have reflex enabled and that kind of thing. But that's really all there is to my iRacing graphics settings. By the way, I'm running a 3080 Ti on these triple screens. Okay, so hopefully that helps. Last thing we're going to cover here are my OBS settings for both streaming and recording. All right, here's the final part, right? So I have the OBS settings screen open, and I'm looking at the output section there, and you see I've got streaming selected, right? I use the NVINC H.264 encoder for streaming, and CBR as the rate control. I think those were the two really key issues or settings for streaming that could, and in the past, have affected the GSync working or not. Okay. If I go to recording, similar settings, except here in as far as my video encoder goes, I use the X264 encoder, and for rate control, I use CRF. I did try CBR with that, and it did have an effect on GSync working or not. So I tried a couple of these others that are listed here, and yeah, so you can see CBR, ABR, VBR. CRF is what I settled on, and it seems to be working. So if it ain't broke, I ain't trying to try and fix it. Okay. And as I said, I've done some videos already. I'm making this video right now using these settings, and OBS, or excuse me, the GSync is working just fine with these settings. So there's really nothing else to it. Okay. Streaming, I am using NVINC, and I have successfully streamed with these settings, with OBS working for a whole race. I just did a video earlier today, so you might see that. I did a stream actually, so you might see that up on the channel. It was the Mustang FR 500 at Sebring, as a matter of fact. Almost came in second on that one. Ran out of gas. Who runs out of gas? Anyway, anyway. Those are the two main settings that I really want to show you. Nothing big, but I did want to point out that with the recording using X264 seemed to work, and more specifically CBR. The reason I decided to use 264, by the way, is I wanted to take any chance of the graphics card having to do any of the processing while still trying to stay in G-Sync mode. My thinking was that one would affect the other. Right? If I'm trying to process recording video with the card, then it wouldn't be able to stay in G-Sync mode. So that's why I stuck with that, and it works, so I left it that way. Don't ask me why streaming can work off just fine with H.264, but it does. I did it today. So that's the OBS settings. Okay, so that does it for this video. You've seen everything that I have for settings in all areas of my rig that allow G-Sync to work with triples without surround in iRacing. I truly hope this helps you guys out. I hope a lot of you find some resolution to the problems you've been having with G-Sync, and taking advantage of those monitors that give you that capability. It took me a long time to find this out, over a couple of years focusing on research and searching and reading and stuff, until this past, break from work, really, where I was able to kind of put in a bit of time and eventually came across that one setting, the key setting, that MPO disable. So again, thanks for tuning in. Hope it helped. Again, if you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. If you like the content on the channel and found this video in particular helpful, please consider subscribing and comment below if this did in fact work for you. I would appreciate that feedback. It'd be good to know that there's others out there that were able to take advantage of this setting as well. Okay, so until the next video, please live well, laugh often, and love always. Take care.